AI, are we sick of talking about this yet? Well, I hope not, because you clicked on this video about AI, and it seems like there is this whole public conversation happening about the role of AI, whether or not it's gonna take people's jobs, who's really benefiting from this new technology, and if it's more hype than help. But city planners also have to contend with the physical side of this cloud-based service. AI requires data centers to work, and the resources being poured into these facilities is kind of crazy. A hyperscale data center designed for AI can use as much power and water as a mid-sized city. The thing is, this isn't exactly new territory for a city planner. Planners have had to deal with challenging land uses since the beginning of the profession. There's a group of places called locally unwanted land uses, or LULUs, that often have a challenging time getting built because nobody wants to live next to them. Classic examples include landfills, feedlots, airports, and sewage treatment plants. If you're a NIMBY, housing is a LULU. A veteran city planner will have likely gone through the process for a LULU and have the battle scars to prove it. These uses often require extensive environmental review, public outreach processes, and lengthy permit review. But while these data centers may be just the next big LULU, they are also something different. Their resource use patterns are different, their general usefulness is different, and the level of investment is different as well. Let's talk about what happens when big tech and hundreds of billions of dollars interacts with local planning after the bike bell. So AI data centers are the hot topic right now in the planning world, and for good reason. Currently, the United States has about 3,000 data centers in operation, but according to Pew Research, 1,500 new data centers are planned or under construction. And these new data centers are often quite a bit larger than their predecessors. This is a big deal because data centers come with some pretty significant environmental downsides. The biggest one you may have heard of is water. A typical data center, like the one of the 3,000 in operation, uses about the same amount of water as 1,000 homes. And unlike other big water users like power plants and agriculture, data centers use municipal water. It's the same waters that the houses use. They don't pump it out of the ground or take it directly from a river. So there's a potentially large impact to a local government or agency's ability to provide water to all of its users when a data center moves in. And the mega data centers, like the new ones they're building for AI, could use the same amount of water as a city of 50,000 residents. Power is another massive challenge for local governments and agencies around data centers. It's probably the biggest concern, honestly, because the demand for most of these mega data centers is being met by building new carbon dioxide emitting power plants, typically natural gas, not a clean energy source, by the way, despite the marketing hype, or by not decommissioning plants scheduled for decommissioning. That means they pollute longer than they would have otherwise. The kind of sad thing here is that we're right in the middle of a power generation revolution, where renewable sources, primarily solar, are helping us decarbonize rapidly. And that's really, really good news. Super exciting. But these data centers are like unexpected headwinds right as we have a safe port in our sights. Water and power tend to get all the attention, but noise is a big issue for those living near these things. It's more of a localized issue, as noise tends to be intense but close by, but then falls off kind of quickly. But for the people close, it's issue number one. For more on this, check out the Business Insider video on data centers. They interview a resident living near one, and he talks about his experience with the noise. That video was nominated for an Emmy Award, so the whole thing is actually worth your time. Okay, so we know what the environmental costs are associated with building a data center. Now the question becomes, are the benefits worth the cost? Another way of thinking about it is this. Are these new massive AI data centers truly necessary? I think this question is actually relevant because it's the argument used to justify LULUs. Nobody wants a coal-fired power plant in their county, but everyone agrees that providing electricity is necessary for day-to-day life. Somebody has to live in that same county as the power plant. Now, obviously, we have better ways of generating power, but you get the idea. Electricity is seen as a universal good thing, and people are willing to put up with some of the negative side effects. The argument is the same for airports. We all like to fly, but nobody wants to live near the airport. Everyone wants their trash picked up from their house, but nobody wants to live near the landfill. NIMBYs want vibrant communities, but don't want to live near other people. So let's go back to data centers. The new mega data centers we're talking about in this video are designed to train AI models and then use them to generate responses to prompts. I know that a great many people find LLMs and other AI uses to be helpful. From what I understand, AI has made coding quite a bit easier, for example. But many people are skeptical of the benefits of AI. And many people, myself included, don't really just need AI much in their day-to-day life, or find it annoying, like when I use Google and get an annoying wrong search summary. I think everyone can agree that electricity is universally a good thing and everyone uses it, unless you're fully off-grid, I guess, but you can't really say the same about AI. Okay, so if these data centers are so bad, why are communities actually allowing them or even courting them? Two reasons. Well, it's really one reason, but at two different places. The reason is money, first at the local level. Cities need tax revenues to pay for services they provide, things like fire protection, paved roads, and parks. An AI data center can help a city buy new playgrounds, increase staff at the senior center, and do other good things community members want. Elected officials like city council members want to say that under their administration, more seniors play bingo than ever before, for example. But there are plenty of communities who are rejecting these data centers straight up, and for all the downsides I already mentioned. Many city councils have passed moratoriums or halts on any new data center projects in their communities. Some cities have made it a requirement that voters have to approve any new data center projects in the community as well. And in June 2026, the city of Monterey Park, California passed a ballot measure straight up banning any data centers. This was in response to an earlier possible data center project. It's the first time a city has banned them outright through the ballot box. And it passed with 86% of the vote. 86%. That's all well and good, but the reason they're still being built in some communities is money. Not just for local tax revenues, though that's a factor, but because companies are building data centers are actively lobbying for statewide legislation allowing them. It's called state preemption. It's basically like AI companies are in a restaurant and they don't like the service, so they call the manager. State authority trumps local authority, and that data center is getting a comped dessert and getting built. The wonderful thing about city planning, in my mind, is that it's sort of a great equalizer. You can be a big corporation, but you still have to put your office campus plan through a planning commission and city council meeting, just like a small apartment building developed by a local guy. Steve Jobs had to present his proposal for the new Apple campus to the Cupertino City Council. It's an example of the beauty of local democracy. The world's most valuable company had to ask permission to build a campus from local elected officials. So you might be thinking that local governments can regulate and decide on whether or not they want a data center in their community. And in some places that's true, but actually not all places. That's because of statewide legislation that fast-tracks AI data center construction. How can states do this? Well, legally speaking, city governments only have the rights that the states give them. Home rule, or the idea cities get to govern themselves, is sort of a privilege that states give to cities. It's not actually a right, and states can preempt that whenever they want. Your view on whether or not this is a good thing probably depends on how you feel about certain urban planning issues. California is preempting home rule to require cities to plan for more housing. If you are a YIMBY, yes in my backyard, you think that's a good thing. Other, more conservative states use it to subvert the plans of more liberal cities. For example, some conservative-leaning states prohibit local governments from setting their own higher minimum wages. Preemption is also what's happening in the data center space. West Virginia, of all places, might be the boldest state. Their 2025 Power Generation and Consumption Act creates specific policies at the state level for high-impact data center districts. Data centers built in these districts are exempt from all local zoning, noise ordinances, and building regulations. Basically, if a data center developer wants to build one in West Virginia, they can just get approval from the state and do whatever they want. Crazily enough, the first draft of that bill directed all tax revenues to the state government, giving none to local governments. The final draft allocated 30% to the county the data center is located in, and 5% to be split among the other counties in the state. 65% of all those tax revenues, though, will still go to the state government. With this kind of law, a data center project can seemingly pop up out of nowhere, as nobody at the local level even needs to be notified. The most prominent example of this happening was near the cities of Thomas and Davis in rural West Virginia. A resident was flipping through her newspaper and found an obscure legal notice disclosing potential air pollution impacts for a proposed facility in her area. She sent the notice around town and nobody knew what it was. They eventually found out it was for a data center and an entirely new natural gas plant to power the servers. By the time they had found out about it, there wasn't much they could do. The state had already given out their approvals, and many of the documents they could find were heavily redacted, making it difficult for residents to know what they were up against. Fundamental data, the people developing this data center, say that at full build-out, the data center could span 10,000 acres and be one of the largest data center campuses in the world. All of this is without any local planning involved at all. Residents have not given up their efforts to stop the project, but it's an uphill battle given the regulatory environment. It's just all pitched against them. West Virginia's laws may be the most data center friendly, but other states are following suit. In Louisiana, the state subverted local control by pre-zoning a massive campus area for Meta's Hyperion data center. They also gave the project massive tax breaks. Nearby residents had little recourse as the state was already directly working with Meta. This data center will use up more power than the entire rest of the state of Louisiana and require the construction of 3 new gas power plants to meet the energy needs. Pennsylvania has passed a law creating a state board that pre-designates sites for large-scale data centers, and then they fast-track data center projects in those areas. They've already identified 15 sites, mostly at retired power plant locations. Other states are pushing data centers through by using their legal authorities to manage utilities and regulate air pollution. Texas is a great example of this, as most counties in the state don't even have the local authority to do zoning. It's easy for the Electric Reliability Council of Texas and the Public Utility Commission to govern the production of data centers with minimal public input from local governments. As kind of an aside, all of this data center stuff reminds me of another tech land use overlap, another Lulu, warehouses. Most typified by the Amazon warehouses allowing next day and 2-day deliveries. They are large, hire a relatively low number of workers, and have disproportionate impacts on nearby communities. The trucks create significant air pollution in the nearby area. The number of crashes in the vicinity increase, and studies have shown that these warehouses are often located in low-income and minority locations, creating environmental justice concerns. Many communities sought these warehouses out, hoping for property tax revenues. But again, studies have shown that these property taxes are low per acre and have not offset the costs local governments bear by having these warehouses in their borders. As a result, there have been a number of communities that have passed moratoriums on their construction. Sounds familiar, right? Like I said, data centers may be the biggest, most difficult Lulu of recent times, but it's not the first. Planners really have seen it all. So what can be done to ensure data centers don't disproportionately impact local communities? I know that some of you out there would just like some kind of national ban on data centers, but I hate to tell you the political environment's heading the opposite direction on that one. I just don't think it's realistic, particularly when some data centers provide useful, non-AI services that we all do rely on. But we can regulate them. Regulation breeds innovation. If cities and states say the data centers need to limit their water and power use to certain thresholds, you had better believe those tech companies would be using their billions to meet those thresholds. The problem is that many of our elected officials seem to fall into 3 groups. First, there are people who have no idea about technology at all and just vote cluelessly, seemingly. Second, there are people who wrongly believe that the internet and tech is a wild west and cannot be regulated. Regulation is impossible, and if it did work, you'd be stifling innovation. And the third kind of people are people who receive large donations to do whatever tech companies want. This is why regulation will not occur without significant public support for them. Votes still matter. We need to be supporting candidates that campaign on AI data center regulation. We need to be asking questions of these candidates. These regulations could include guarantees that utility rates will not increase for residential customers as a result of the construction of a new data center, requirements that data centers build their own power sources using renewable power, public disclosures of water use, and buffer zones around data centers to reduce the impact of noise on local communities. Regulations could also ensure that data center impact fees and property taxes go to the communities they are located in and not the state government. Data centers are obviously a major current event, and we just finished another one, the World Cup. While I was definitely cheering for my preferred team, the USA, and then later Norway, I was also thinking of the logistics of these major sporting events. I was in LA during the World Cup, though not the games, sadly, and I definitely wondered about mobility and traffic. TomTom wondered too, and during the tournament they created a traffic index dashboard that helped visualize traffic patterns around the 16 host venues. It showed where congestion built up, how quickly it peaked, and how it spread across the surrounding road network. These traffic dynamics are not unique to the event. They're recurring patterns seen at major sporting events around the world. Though the tournament is over, the traffic index dashboard still works, and you can go check it out. I put a link in the description. At the time I'm filming this, the New England Revolution of MLS hosted a game yesterday in Gillette Stadium. They beat Atlanta United 4-1, by the way. You can see here that there's a traffic peak at 6 p.m. before the 7:30 kickoff and another peak at 10 p.m. after the game is over. But there's more than just one graph. And congestion is just one piece of the puzzle. To actually plan for events like this, you need to understand what's driving those patterns and how different parts of the network behave together. And that's where a platform like TomTom's Move portal comes into play. Move brings together different types of traffic intelligence in one place. Historic traffic stats to understand baseline behavior, origin-destination analysis to see how people travel between airports, hotels, and venues, route monitoring to track key travel corridors over time, junction analytics to pinpoint pressure at intersections around stadiums, and area analytics to uncover any traffic insights in specific areas, such as access roads around a stadium. Altogether, you get a much clearer picture of not just where things will slow down, but where the network can handle spikes in demand and where even greater opportunities lie. From proactively adjusting traffic flows to implementing measures like retimed signals and transit priority. So if you want to see how traffic behaves around stadiums during major sporting events, check out TomTom's Football World Championship dashboard. And if you want to understand what's really possible with traffic intelligence, explore TomTom's Move portal. Go to tomtom.com/citybeautiful to explore the data for yourself. And check out the TomTom Move portal free for 30 days.